Welcome to Narratives and Nightcaps. In today's mini episode, we're talking about a specific genre, our recent reads in that genre, any recommendations, or authors. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Megan.
Oh, I'm Bree.
Yeah, I don't know if we're still saying that this time, but why
Yeah,
not?
you, we'll tell the people. So, today, for this month of January, we have found ourselves in a bit of a contemporary romance space, given our first read and then our first guest interview and author for the year. So, we figured for our first mini episode, let's talk about contemporary romance. So, I'll start because that is such a vague and broad genre. So let's talk a little bit more about what contemporary romance is specifically. So most of this information is coming from one of three sources. The first being Writer's Digest, talking about women's fiction or romance, a blog-ish space, ivoh.org, talking about what is contemporary romance genre, and then Masterclass, 6 common romance subgenres to guide your writing, which I will say on that note, if you are a writer or just interested at all as a reader, that Masterclass article is really, really interesting. Just going into the details about the subgenres of romance, which is even more broad than contemporary romance.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So much
on
I
that
didn't
note,
know. Like
I know.
especially I also like that your very first from the Writer's Digest post or website. I didn't realize there was such thing as women's fiction.
Oh, yeah, women's fiction is super common. So, I would think of, I guess, I don't know if there's a time constraint when it comes to women's fiction, but a lot of like Kristen Hanna novels are often
Hmm.
considered women's fiction. So yeah, so that is a genre.
Okay.
But then a lot of things there tend to be more specific subgenres that those novels then fall under.
Hmm.
So on that note, let me mute my phone. Contemporary romance is a subgenre of the larger category romance. Duh.
Yes.
And so you're probably thinking, because I know I was, that it's still a very large subgenre, and you're not wrong at all. It is. I didn't know this. Contemporary romance novels are stories set any time after World War II up to the present. So as long as they take place in modern times, essentially anything after World War II, then it can be considered a contemporary romance. But there are a few other things that it has to fall under technically. But I thought that was interesting because
Yeah.
at
Well,
the
it makes
same
me wonder what would be pre-World War II romance?
I, and just general romance,
Just romance?
and unless it fell under some other
Yeah.
subgenre as well, one of those other 6 that Masterclass talks about. I
Interesting.
thought this was interesting because if I read a book that's set in the 1960s or the 1950s and it's a romance, I don't think of it as contemporary romance, but it is technically.
Okay.
So,
That's good. Well, see, like I feel like if we're looking at time constraints, regardless of what it is, I'm always like it's historical fiction. Like you're clearly talking about this specific time frame, whether it's romantic thriller, like whatever the case is. I'm just like, you are lump sum historical fiction. I don't care what
but
else
a
you
lot of
call
novels are multiple,
it. Mhm.
so you can be multiple
You could be a
ones.
historical fiction, contemporary romance.
You can. I can't. I was trying to think earlier of a novel, but I wasn't coming because I was trying to think of one that was in like the 50s, 60s, or 70s, and everything I was coming to, I was like, it's historical fiction, but it's not a romance. It's not a
Right.
romance. So I'm sure they exist. I'm sure they're out there, and I just can't pull them off the top of my head. So contemporary romance novels are mostly character driven and focus on a protagonist who, or over the course of that story, that novel, they develop a romantic relationship. They overcome whatever challenges and obstacles there are until they reach the famous happily ever after.
Hmm.
So, generally, when you are reading a contemporary fiction novel, you are reading it because you know it's going to reach a happy ending, and for the most part, it's guaranteeing it.
Okay.
So, This differs from women's fiction, which I was reading is a lot of people get those kind of mixed up.
Okay.
But women's fiction, which can also include romantic relationships, it's not that they're not there. And of course, the protagonist or multiple protagonists, they experience growth and they have to overcome challenges, otherwise, there wouldn't be a book. But women's fiction doesn't guarantee, nor is it generally expected for there to be a happy ending.
Oh, okay.
And
Interesting.
we're talking like the general happy ending, like the people we keep, I guess, potential somewhat spoilers, so if you haven't read that, maybe fast forward like 15 seconds. But like the people we keep, it doesn't have a happy ending. It's not a sad ending, but
Right.
it's not a happy ending either.
Right.
And guaranteed that I wouldn't call that like a romantic. I don't really think of the relationships as super romantic, but okay. So that's contemporary romance for
Oh
you,
my
you know,
God.
in case you didn't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, now you know, and it is so broad. So, okay, I guess like going into it now, because I was telling you before we started recording, I was doing some Goodreads searching as one does, and their category of contemporary romance includes things that I think should technically exclude them based on the happily ever after ending, or I don't know, the time period or whatever the case may be. So, as you said, maybe don't rely on Goodreads 100%.
I love them for certain things.
Mhm. Well, because I just thought, I was like, wow, this is so convenient. You can do literally a genre search and type in like, okay, romance, and then subcategory romantic or contemporary romance, and it gave me all of these books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've read a ton of these books, not even realizing that that's what the genre was. So,
Um,
oh,
Unrelated to this podcast, but I feel like not even just with contemporary romance, but I've done that genre search on Goodreads before too, and there have been other genres that I've searched and seen books, and I think, oh, that doesn't really fall
right.
into this category.
Yeah, I could see that. I was curious too because I obviously didn't research very much into how Goodreads does their genre categories, but I was curious if it had anything to do with um like reader rankings or like how readers also categorize it for themselves because it's a lot of reader input as well with the reviews and the ratings and everything. So I didn't
That's
know if maybe
possible with Goodreads,
if that
yeah.
had something to do with it too.
It's possible.
Yeah.
All right, well, what books do you want to talk about?
Okay, so I divided my three categories into like a have read, want to read, and then an author as well. And as I said, I like this is such a broad spectrum, and so I feel like maybe some of these books don't count, but they also kind of do count. So I'll just say them anyway. And I feel like most listeners would be well aware of what these books are. Like these are not new reads by any means. So I'm not going to dive into like the full background of each story either. So my first one I have listed as a have read is 50 Shades of Grey. I feel like this counts. The whole series, there is a happy ending. It is post World War II. Yes, it's a little smutty, it's a little sexy. It was my like first awakening into that type of genre, but I feel like it definitely counts as contemporary romance. And if you haven't read 50 Shades, you're living under a rock because there's like movies too. Like I don't know where you're at.
It counts. It counts.
So yeah, I
According to
just said
definition.
yeah, according to definition, it counts. So this is my obviously my have read because these have been out for a long time. I I have a distinct memory of like when they were coming out, especially being able to access them via like iTunes, like their audiobooks or the whatever, just regular books on iTunes. And I was reading these on a freaking iPod Touch, like this big, reading these freaking smut novels. So that was me back in what 2011. And then the next book I wrote as a have read that I feel like counts toward this genre is Me Before You.
This is not okay. Have you read the whole series though? Because then I
Not
would
the
say
whole thing.
yes.
I'm just saying just Me Before You.
It has the saddest ending.
I know, but it also, like, it's
There's
also kind of happy.
no. It's did you? No, you cry. You even wrote it. You wrote
I
freaking
know.
cry.
Cry. Yeah, absolutely,
It,
you cry. But I
Cause
feel like
it's
just in the sense of, like, the love, the like, there is clearly a romance, but yes, it does
it's
not have
a
happy
romance.
ending. It is a romance, so maybe it's not contemporary romance.
It's okay. It's okay. It's worth mentioning because that
It's
book
worth
is so good.
Yes, and also the movie, I think, is also so good and so well casted, so
It
watch
is.
that
I
one.
will say I have rewatched that movie because it's so good. Wait, can I tell you a funny story about that
Yeah.
movie though? Sorry. Um, that movie. Oh, okay. If she listens, like I hope you laugh at this too. But so someone took me to go see that movie when it was in theaters and misjudged the start time of the movie. And so we showed up like halfway in. And so we missed the whole beginning of the movie. And it like not a big deal. I was like, I already know what happens. It's fine.
Right,
I've
if
read the
you read
book.
the
Like
book, you're good, yeah.
totally good. We went back the next day and watched the whole movie because she like really wanted to go see it again.
Oh.
Like the whole thing start to finish. So, okay.
Oh, that's funny.
That's
And then the last one, I'm not gonna like, okay, so again, this was like a Goodreads mislabeling, I think, because you're right. Like this has a freaking horrible I mean, not horrible, but like just so sad. But this is another definite like probably young adult romance, I would say, right?
yeah.
And it's The Fault in Our Stars.
Oh,
And yes, it gets you. But if you go to Goodreads and you go to contemporary romance, they have this listed like one of the top novels of a contemporary romance is The Fault in Our Stars.
maybe what they're doing is taking like the sub genres of
Uh-huh.
things and just lumping them.
And that's what I'm wondering too. Because like as I'm scrolling through all of these, I'm like, yeah, I've read this, but like it is really sad. And like it is, I mean, it is romantic for sure, but it's horrible.
That is a great book. Honestly,
It's
I
so
would
good.
read I would
That is one of
reread.
the books that I've reread, and I'm not a rereader.
Oh, it is so good. I have it on my bookshelf. Like I will
Yeah.
not part with that book.
Yeah. That's I have Me Before You and The
I
Fault in
know.
Our Stars, I'm pretty sure, on my bookshelf as well. I do not have 50 Shades of Grey.
I also don't have 50 Shades of Grey on my bookshelf, but I have read
Um,
them.
yes, I've read them. I do not own them in a hard copy. And I also said, like, probably note, like, these are all, like, closer to 10 years since I've read all of these
And
books. So,
your iPod Touch is long gone.
yes, that thing has been dead for 15 years now. Okay, so moving on to want to read, and you can tell me because I think you've already read this.
I have.
Things We Never Got Over. Now, is this true to form?
I would say yes.
Okay, so I've been wanting to read this, and I also at the I haven't realized that it's a series. So there's two other books that go with it,
Yes,
technically.
but they're all standalones technically,
Okay.
so they're a part of the same universe, if you will.
Okay. It's called the Knock Me Out series because that's like the town that it takes place in, I guess.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Yeah, I don't know. But so when I was like scrolling through reading reviews on this, there are some awful reviews.
Okay, but to be fair, that happens with every single
True,
book.
true.
Um,
Like some of it, I was like, why? Why did you even take the time to write this if you hated it so much?
some people go a little too all out on Goodreads, and I'm just like, you have a lot of time.
Yeah, and a lot
Just
of just like disgust. But yes, so this is my want to read. Apparently, it's true to form, romantic, contemporary. I almost said romantic comedy. That is not what we're talking about. Contemporary romance.
you should read it. You should read it. Is it going to be life changing and you're gonna like love it and shout it from the rooftops? No. Is it going to
Okay.
be entertaining? Yeah.
Okay. That's what, but I also feel like contemporary romance is not supposed to be, these are not our life changing novels.
They're the novels that you should be reading because you want to be in a good mood.
Yes.
They're like, you want the happy ending. So you're
Right.
like, yeah, I'm going to read it.
Like all of our holiday reads.
Now,
So
I will
fun,
say
so happy.
Lucy Score tends to have other elements within her book that take it beyond just the like hallmarkness
Mhm.
of contemporary romance.
Okay. And that's acceptable to me. Okay, and then so my last category, I'm moving on to authors. So I said, and this is true, obviously, but like probably most notably and popular big names are like Colleen Hoover, Emily Henry, and the author duo Christina Lauren. These are big hitters, but there's also so many people that fall, many authors that fall into. So the other author that I keep coming across that I have not read any of her books, but I'm super interested in is Abby Jimenez. I'm assuming that's how you say her last name. She actually has quite a bit of novels out. Part of Your World, Yours Truly, The Friend Zone, and Worst Wingmen Ever, just to name a few. And she also, I saw, had a really cool. There was like a combination novel with like her, Emily Henry, Christina Lauren, like a lot, like a collection of romance
Cool.
or contemporary romance. I don't know if it's like short stories or what it was. But she is definitely one that I want to add to my like want to read list because she just has so many available and is just someone that keeps popping up over my feed. So
I,
that's me.
I agree. I see her everywhere, and I also wanted to read some of her books. Okay, so I'm going to talk about just a favorite, a recent one that I read, and then an author for contemporary romance. But I will just say that I love the contemporary romance genre in general. So this in no way, shape, or form includes all of the books, but I'll go through some of the ones that I really like. So, first, I would say Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I've said it before because we read People We Meet on Vacation last year, and I take no criticism when it comes to her. Like, you're entitled to your opinion, but I think that she's an absolute master when it comes to contemporary romance. And Book Lovers was so good. I also think that this might have been the first one that I read of hers that then hooked me onto Beach Read. And then we read People We Meet on Vacation, and I have Happy Place. I just haven't read it yet. So, really quick thing if you haven't read it yet, Book Lovers is the story of Nora, which we just had another character, so popular name. She's a successful literary agent who agrees to a month-long trip with her sister in the small town of Sunshine Falls, North Carolina, which just sounds like a Hallmark movie. Libby, Nora's sister, even makes a vacation list with the classic and stereotypical to-dos for them on this vacation. And the person that Nora didn't expect to also be in Sunshine Falls is none other than Parley Lastra, the editor she knows and has known from back in the city, where they both work in the industry. And yet they seem to run into each other time and time again. It is like a fun enemies to lovers, even though I wouldn't really say they're enemies, but it's super cute in true Emily Henry fashion. The book is witty, has incredible banter. I just like love it. And the fact that there are these bookish characters is just so fun as like a reader and someone who loves the industry. So read anything Emily Henry, but I would definitely recommend Book Lovers if you like contemporary fiction.
That this one is Book Lovers is one that's been on my list for a long time too. So I just need to buy these things and not
You do.
just sit on them.
You do, but my TBR list is also huge, or even the ones that are on my shelf. I'm like, oh man, I gotta get to that. And we'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, so that's one of my favorites. Now, my recent one, which could also be considered a holiday romance, so it's contemporary and it's holiday, is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. So, this was super cute to read over the Christmas and holiday season. It is about Stella Bloom and how she must save Lovelight Farms, the Christmas tree farm that she owns. It seems like everything has been going wrong for her lately on the farm, but winning $100,000 via the contest that she entered could do the trick. It could help them with their financial woes that they are facing. But she sort of lied on her application for the contest when she said that she owned this picturesque, amazing Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. But there isn't a boyfriend. But there is her best friend, Luca Peters. So Luca agrees to fake date Stella to like have this appearance that he owns the farm with her and it's all going to be fine. But it's very clear that deeper feelings have been there for both of them because they've been friends for nearly a decade, just never have taken a step toward being anything more. The book was super cute, super, super cute. Again, highly recommend reading it over the holidays. It's very Hallmark with like more adult content ish. Like, I'm not going to call it super smutty, but there's more adult language and other things. So,
Like
there's
sex
that.
scenes, are we talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
But and language. So like if you think you're just going to read a Hallmark book, it's beyond that.
Okay. I think that's good though, because sometimes when it stays too packaged in the Hallmark box, then it almost gets boring because it's like, oh my gosh, I've read this. I mean, it's just like the Nora we just got done reading about, where it's like you give me two names and a location and I'll create a whole story because it's the same story over and over and over again. So I like the interjections of more adult, more like my conversation versus just everything's light and pretty and Hallmark.
Agreed. Agreed. So that because I like Hallmark movies, I think they're great and everything, but I this is like a step beyond that and I like it. For this book specifically, if Friends to Lovers is your thing, like if you're a big trope person, then this is definitely a good one. I haven't read the other ones, but similar to the Things We Never Got Over, the series that you mentioned, there are other books in this series, but they're standalone books. So like you can read them in any order, but they're all a part of sort of the same characters and the same world.
I like that. I like you said, like a universe where everything's, I don't know, like you have probably similar scenery, but it's not the same book over and or like the same characters even. So that's really nice.
Exactly. Okay, so last I just want to mention an indie author because I think whenever possible we'll try to shout out the indie authors. So this one specifically is Holly Whitworth. We connected with her last year and I've read a few of her novels now. All fall under contemporary romance, like they are modern day romances, happy endings. She fits it to a T. I would highly recommend if Lovelight Farms would be really similar, where you want that happy ending, the Hallmark sort of feel, but the conversations and the content is just it's more adult. It's gonna feel a little bit more real depending on who you are. But I would highly recommend her books. Specifically, I would say her Over the Fence and Not Over You. I particularly liked Not Over You, but I would recommend that you read Over the Fence first. This is another one where you have a lot of the same characters, but you get different main stories, different protagonists per book. So if you read Over the Fence, you'll be introduced to some people, and then the second book will mainly be about them, which is Not Over You. So I would highly recommend checking out Holly Whitworth if you are a fan of contemporary romance because she has some really good options.
Yay! Shout out to our authors.
Woohoo! So next month we're going to be talking about historical fiction, which we both love this genre. It's for sure one of our favorites that we both agree on.
Yes.
So that is what we're going to be talking about.
And it'll all be basically.
Say that again?
I said it'll all be like World War II stuff, basically.
It'll be a lot of World War II stuff. So if you like that, be sure to tune in then. Okay, cheers.
Yeah.